the Stars before ringing in the new year. You can purchase single game tickets or a rivalry package to secure seats for 3 home matchups with Omaha now at LincolnStars.com.
General Fire and Safety has been keeping Lincoln businesses and commercial structures safe for more than 50 years. From a simple fire extinguisher to full fire suppression systems, Lincoln has trusted General Fire and Safety to provide top-of-the-line products, installation, and maintenance. If you're starting a new business in a brand new building, call on General Fire and Safety to help you plan a fire safety system that fits the specific needs of your business, employees, and customers. Call General Fire and Safety today at 402-261-0116.
Ryan, with all this red and all these people around, I'm still not seeing the tailgate.
Todd Spidell, former body shop owner, terrible driver.
We're getting close. Now, did you know with 3 locations in Lincoln and hundreds of years of combined technician experience, we can get Husker fans back on the road even quicker and safer after their tailgate mishaps? Oh, Todd, turn left right here.
Left or right?
Left, right here.
Right?
Well, you wait for the tow truck. I'm getting a hot dog.
Well, I guess while I'm waiting. All right! Most recommended! Eustace Body Shop! Woohoo!
Dude, you should be on American Idol.
You really think so?
No.
Accidents happen, even to Husker fans. If it happens to you, call Eustace Body Shop, where our customers send their friends.
The most recommended Eustace Body Shop. That's who we are.
Wrestling fans, it's time to elevate your game, just like Stevens & Smith Construction does for your concrete needs. As your full-service concrete contractor, we deliver solid results every time. From singles to doubles, fighting for inside position to scrambling reversals, we know how to pin down quality and slam expectations. Stevens & Smith Construction, a proud sponsor of Takedown Tuesdays on 93.7 The Ticket, where Husker wrestlers bring you all the action. Don't stall. Stevens & Smith Construction is here to help you build a concrete foundation for the win. Check us out at www.stevensandsmith.com because stalling is a penalty and winning is the only option.
There's only one place this holiday season to shop for the sports fan in your life and get cash back for slightly used sports items you don't need anymore. Play It Again Sports. Check out their selection of new and used items, including home fitness equipment like treadmills, exercise bikes, and ellipticals. And get your lift with free weights, benches, and racks to add to your home gym. And don't forget, if you have anything slightly used to trade in, they'll give you instant cash. Holiday shopping starts and ends at Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
Ooh, what a day. I could sure use an afternoon pick-me-up. Hold up. The new 93.7 The Ticket location has a milk, coffee, and tea inside? Oh, yeah. This is a game changer.
Need an afternoon pick-me-up? How about a coffee or smoothie on your way to work? Stop by the Ticket Mill location on 1040 O Street to get your go-to drink or try out our new game day drinks exclusive to the Ticket Mill location. We know it'll make your day a million times better. Husker Nation, Nebraska is heading to the Pinstripe Bowl, and J-Tech Construction and Solar is here to help you score big on your home this season. Buy any 2 trades, windows, siding, roofing, solar, gutters, or doors, and save up to 20% off. Plus, enjoy no payments until 2026 and receive a $25 Valentino's gift card. Don't wait for the final whistle. Score big with J-Tech. From a new roof to energy-saving windows and solar panels, they've got your home covered like a true champ. Call 402-261-3682 to schedule your free estimate today. J-Tech Construction and Solar, proud sponsors of Husker football. Nebraska is in their first bowl game since 2016, and 93.7 The Ticket is on the scene. Join me, Nick Sainert, Jake Sorensen, and Adam Carricker for coverage from New York City for the Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium. We'll have videos of festivities on Friday with commentary and videos from pregame, during the game, and postgame on Saturday as Nebraska takes on Boston College at 11 a.m. Central Time. Coverage from the Pinstripe Bowl is sponsored by J-Tech Construction and Solar, High Electric, Lincoln Industries, and A1 Automotive.
Welcome in to the Corner 3, taking you around the arc of college basketball. From the NAAC to the Pac-12, the WCC to the SWAC. We cover it all now on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Oerman.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the Corner 3. I don't care if it's Christmas week. I don't care if New Year's is coming. It's hoop season. We are not taking a Friday off. We are talking ball here for the next hour or so on 93.7 Ticket. Nothing after us, so might go a little past 7. We'll just have to see. As always, I am not alone. I am Austin Oerman, joined by Jacob Bigelow, host of the Stretch Big podcast, contributor for Huskers Illustrated, among many other things. Jacob, how you doing, man?
I'm all right, man. I'm not too bad. A little, it's the holidays where it's the weird in between Christmas and New Year's, but there's still ball to talk. There's still things to discuss, especially with recent happenings out in Hawaii and among other things. There's plenty to talk about still, so I'm happy to be here, man.
We will certainly get to Hawaii. We'll do that in the second segment. There's been some discussion raging on Nebraska basketball Twitter, such as it is. We'll get to the Diamond Head Classic here in a little bit. We'll get to Brice Williams first, his MVP showing. That'll lead us into a big picture sort of outlook. So 6004, we see your text. That's going to factor into our big picture discussion in segment 2. So stick with us there. Thunderknock Collins, the last Corner 3 of 2024. That's right.
Wow.
Last one of the year.
Point. People forget about years.
They do.
Yes, they forget about calendar year.
Last one of the 366 day, because it was a leap year this year. So the final one, we picked it back up in July. We've been going every Friday basically since then. The first one of 2025 will come the day before maybe the most pivotal game on Nebraska's schedule, a home date with UCLA.
Yes.
And of course, we will get to that here in the future. But 402-464-5685, if you got anything to add to the show, drop a comment on stream, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, up and running for you as well. But Jacob, the discussion since Diamond Head has been trying to compare Brice Williams to players in Husker history, right?
Yes.
Who is Brice Williams? Who does he remind you of? We've had a lot of different answers. I think the one that comes to mind first for most people is James Palmer Jr. How good of a match is James Palmer Jr., what he did for Nebraska, to what Brice Williams is doing now?
It's similar. And I, full disclosure for those of you who aren't familiar, I spent, a couple years up close and personal with JPJ from his redshirt season to the 2 seasons that he played in Lincoln. And that was the comp for me. Like the comp for me to Palmer comes more so from the not reliance, but the ability to draw fouls and the ability to put your head down, go to the cup, get fouled, and make your free throws, because that was a lot. Palmer did a lot of that, those 2 years that he was playing. I think that's might have to do a little bit with recency. And there've been people who have told me that that comparing Brice to him or is a disservice to Brice, and I'm just like, we all gotta balance out recency here. We gotta balance out recency. Like James Palmer, he was in the G League for a couple years. He got some solid opportunities here stateside. Now he's over in Europe playing for Galatasaray, which is one of the better European clubs.
Yeah.
He's over in Turkey, so he's no slouch. That dude could play. That dude was a player. He was the last all league guy until K-State last year too. He was no slouch. I know that those 2 seasons didn't end the way people wanted them to, but James Palmer Jr. he was a bucket, man.
Similar size guys.
Yes.
Brice listed at 6'7", 215. James Palmer at 6'6", 207. Brice Williams is a better shooter overall. JPJ, the 40% from the field overall, 31.5 from 3, 74 at the free throw line. Brice Williams for his career, 46, 40, and 83. So a little bit more efficient from Brice Williams, not taking the same number of shots as JPJ was asked to on some of those teams. That certainly explains some of it. I'm glad you brought up the free throws, right? That was a huge part of James Palmer Jr.'s game. And that was one of the things I was in wait and see mode for with Brice Williams this year, right? Early in the year, he was leading Nebraska in scoring, but Nebraska was shooting the most free throws in the country, right? I was a little, not concerned, not worried. I know Brice Williams is a darn good player. He's a bucket. But I'm like, he's not going to be able to be a foul merchant as we get into Big Ten play. The whistle's going to dry up. It's going to be more physical. He's not going to be able to get away with it. Indiana happened, and then Diamond Head happened. Brice Williams has been on a 2-week stretch of reminding us that boy's a bucket.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the getting fouled and the free throws is where most of the comp comes from in my mind, thinking about it. James is more athletic. He was, he's more likely to put you on a poster. He definitely was not as, as icy in the mid range as Brice was. That's been my joke with Brice, is like, he's so good in the mid range. Does Fred like it or does Fred hate it? Because we know how he views the rim and the three and everything in between is tough. But that's kind of more so where the comparison comes from me, and I think it was based in the ability to get fouled and the fact that that Palmer was an all league dude, and he was there were some very memorable nights. That him having 30 on Creighton in Lincoln in December of 2017. No, December 18. December of 2018.
Before it all went to
and him, him getting up and him getting up there and saying, I had 30. I can't lie. I was just feeling it, I guess. Like, that's one of the most I was just feeling it, I guess. Like, that's just one of the, that's some of the things that, come to mind when I think of him. But I think there's a more nails on comparison the more that I looked into it, that comes a couple years before James.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll get there. The other place I think the JPJ comparison falls apart is I don't think he could have handled the ball like Brice as a point guard.
No.
I don't think he was wired like that. I think Brice Williams, even if it's not his best role, he's capable of it. The comparison I will not stand for is Terran Petaway. Dude's a gunner. All he was going to do is buckets. I think Brice is more well-rounded, better defender. I'm not going to say better teammate. I wasn't there. I don't know, disparage Terran Petaway and his locker room presence. But I like Brice Williams' all-around game a little bit better. All right, your comparison. What's the one that you like a couple of years before JPJ?
Well, I'm not going to claim it because this was pointed out to me by my good buddy Matt, who runs the Husker Hoop Central board. He responded to me the other night and said that Brice is like if Andrew White had spent the offseason learning how to dribble and pass instead of transferring to Syracuse after his 1 year in Lincoln, which is ironically enough backed up by the fact that if you look up the all-time PER leaders, player efficiency rating leaders, in the history of Nebraska basketball, there's a tie at the top between Andrew White and Brice Williams.
At the top?
With a PER of 24.2.
Wow.
And that is
okay.
And that is Brice's PER this season, and that is Andrew White's PER for the one season he played in Lincoln in the 15-16 season. So
I looked up those numbers when I saw that comparison floating around. I did not remember how good Andrew White was for that team, despite everything going off the rails. That's a guy that shot 48% overall, 41% from two on 6 attempts per game, a cool 78% at the free throw line as well, 16.5 points per game, 6 rebounds. That's a guy I thought was going to be a stud at Nebraska. He was for 1 year. That was a painful one to let walk out the door.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And he walked out the door about a month before I got to campus as a freshman manager back in the day. So got to hear all about that ordeal. But yeah, that was, and they could have used him on that team my freshman year too. He would have been pretty good. But yeah, the thing about the PER ratings is, that 15-16 season has 2 of the top 3 in him and then Siobhan. Siobhan's on there at 23.7. So
there's the name that I landed on.
For Brice?
For Brice. Because Andrew White's numbers are there, but I think Siobhan handled the ball like Brice did.
He did.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're looking at just numbers, if you're looking at their primary role, yes, Andrew White is absolutely the comparison. That is a good one. But I see some Siobhan in Brice Williams. Obviously, Brice is a better shooter from outside, more consistent free throw shooter as well, although let's not knock Siobhan Shields for his Nebraska record, most made free throws in a game against Illinois.
Absolutely. Yep.
So give Siobhan Shields his credit for that. But when I was thinking through this, Andrew White was a bucket, but to me, Andrew White and James Palmer were buckets-only guys, right? Capable defenders, not great. Brice, I think, is a better defender than either of them. Playing in maybe not a scheme that's more defensive, but is certainly leaned into that identity a little bit more. And the amount that Siobhan Shields had the ball in his hands, not just to finish plays, but to initiate as a creator for some sketchy at best Nebraska teams, and then a couple good ones, better ones at the end as well. If you're looking in terms of role, I think there's more overlap between Siobhan Shields and Brice Williams than Brice and those other guys.
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me of this is another Tim Miles era ism, but I think there's a line he gave. It was either on a BTN documentary or something, and it was the think it was going into the year after the tournament that went off the rails. And he was like, yeah, there are 3 guys in the program who can't have a bad night, me, Turan, and Siobhan. And that's kind of a similar feeling with this Nebraska team. Like there are 3 guys who can't have a bad night: Fred Hoiberg, Brice Williams, and Jawan Gary. In a way.
Nate Lenzer never has a bad night.
Nate Lenzer never has a bad night. Shout out to Coach Lenzer. But I had that thought pop into my head, when I, talking about Petaway and Siobhan. But I think I definitely see the similarities there. I think the thing that puts Brice, and you alluded to it, that puts him kind of above all these other guys mentioned, is how well-rounded he is.
Yeah.
And Fred Hoiberg is talked about. That's been their goal with him this season, is for him to become more well-rounded, whether it's defensively or on the boards. And I think we've seen glimpses of that throughout his 2 seasons. And I think, I said before the year that I thought he was an all Big Ten guy. He got like 5 votes in the, unofficial preseason, Big Ten media poll. But I think, I think over the last couple of weeks, people were taking notice of Brice, whether that's, in the league or on the national scale, for sure.
The game against Indiana had at least one scout there from the Dallas Mavericks. I'm sure that was at least with a little bit of an eye on Brice Williams. There's that. I think Nebraska playing that standalone game on Friday night, big one for national eyeballs and attention. You get tweets about it, and that went much better for Nebraska basketball than it's ever gone for Nebraska football in most of the last decade. So credit Husker Hoops for that one. And then even Diamond Head, right, which we'll get to in the next segment a little more in depth, being over Christmas, the only multi-team event going on there. It's a shame that they're considering, it sounds like they are going to move it to Thanksgiving, get lost in the shuffle of feast week next week. But Brice Williams had a stage. He took full advantage of it. It comes out as Diamond Head MVP, well-rounded performance. And I think part of what makes Brice Williams such a special player in Nebraska history compared to some of these guys too, is that it felt like Brice Williams had an off night against Murray State. For whatever. It wasn't the best Brice, just kind of out there. But you look at the stat lines, like, it really wasn't that bad. It wasn't peak, but it was okay. Brice still made an impact. He was a winning player, played his fair share of minutes, and then, okay, got his legs under him. Here's 32. Here's another 25. I'm turning him an MVP. Just a well-rounded player that maybe doesn't put Nebraska on his back in the same way as Andrew White or James Palmer Jr. did, but it's a huge testament to Brice Williams, who he is, that he didn't feel like he had a bad game against Murray State. He was still probably a top 3 most impactful player for Nebraska.
Yeah, definitely. And I heard someone say today that the rest of the way, Nebraska, he's not going to be like he was in Hawaii all the time, but they have to have the right balance between Hawaii Brice and Michigan State Brice.
Yeah.
You gotta, you can't have you got to find the right, it's not going to be, what it was like this past, especially those last 2 against Hawaii and the Oregon State. I don't think it's going to be that every night. If it is, holy hell, this is going to be an interesting, couple months for, following Nebraska basketball. But, I think there has been the amount of like duds that I can think of in Brice Williams' time as a Husker are few and far between. I know people have, he doesn't show any emotion. He's not, he looks like he's a robot. And I'm just like, if you want to see emotion, look at those pictures of him looking happy as
he looked like a Tuscan Raider holding that paddle
looking as happy as find something that makes you look as happy as Brice Williams looked holding up his Diamond Head Classic all tournament team paddle in the team pictures after they beat Oregon State on Christmas. That was I don't want to hear anyone questioning, he never looks animated. He doesn't show any emotion. Like, when you're a killer, you don't have to, man. When you're a killer, you don't have to, and you can look a little goofy with your commemorative boat paddle that I'm interested to see how long he hangs on to. Is that gonna make it with him to his next apartment, wherever he ends up after Lincoln, his Diamond Head Classic paddle?
Let me just say, PJ Fleck could never.
No,
PJ Fleck has never been that enthusiastic about a paddle or an oar in his life.
No.
On Brice Williams, I do think it's interesting too, because back in the Andrew White days, for example, back in even early-ish Siobhan Shields, maybe to a different extent James Palmer Jr., but I feel confident about the footing of Nebraska's program to where they can get Brice Williams in position to be an NBA draft pick and not sacrifice on the season. Nebraska is going to, use Brice Williams how they need to use him to win games. But Nebraska has enough depth, has enough different rotations, and I think has a high enough floor that Brice Williams can run the point if they have to, if he's the best option like he did at the end against Oregon State, a lot of handling, same against Hawaii. But they can also say, hey, we got Raleigh Wooster, so Brice, play off ball. Go showcase that you can be a 3-and-D wing or a 3-and-D shooting guard in the NBA. And James Palmer Jr.'s role was always going to be buckets, right? That's what he was going to be. And Nebraska said, okay, yep, we need you to get buckets, so go get buckets. But it's been a long time since Nebraska's been able to focus on the present and feel good enough about it that they can also help prioritize guys' future, unlike maybe a previous player by the name of Brice in the program.
Yeah, that's a very great point. That's a great point, actually. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's going to be, I'm interested, I'm not like an NBA draft nerd or, anything like that. I know the NBA hates 23-year-olds. I think Brice is actually going to be 24 by the time the draft comes around. So it'll be interesting to see that. I mean, I think he's definitely worthy of he's a candidate to be a two-way guy. I think and that's going to be dependent upon how he plays the rest of the way, obviously, because he's flirting with 50, 40, 90 right now, and that would be really impressive if he were able to come close to that. But it's going to be interesting to see where he goes, because so you can say what you will about the Fred Hoiberg era at Nebraska, but I mean, they got two guys playing they got two guys that have they at least had a cup of coffee in the NBA. The two of them, they're on the same team now, actually, but whether they're depends on if Brice is in the G League or not at the moment. But I mean, that's a blueprint that you can use for recruiting in the future, whether it's portal, high school, or whatever. You can be like, hey, we got this guy that we had here, he's in the league now, he did this, and it's just a blueprint that you can sell, and that's useful for Fred Hoiberg and staff going forward.
I am so curious to see how the rest of the season plays out for Brice Williams, because that NBA comp is going to be interesting. I mean, I think there's going to be a role just for a plug and play guy, right? If he's a back half of the first round or a flyer in the middle of the first round for a fringe playoff team. Do I see NBA All-Star in Brice Williams' future? Not right now. Could he grow into it? Potentially.
I was given a comp today.
Okay.
By noted Big Ten Twitter man Ant Wright.
Ooh.
Was given
Ant's a must follow, by the way.
Was given a Brice comp today. His comp was Aaron Aflalo.
Interesting. Huh.
In terms of well-roundedness, in terms of size, in terms of like never gonna be the guy, but could be a guy, like have a role, contribute. That was the comp.
That intrigues me. So Aaron Aflalo carved out an 11-year NBA career. 45, 39, 83 were his splits. Average 10, 3, and 2. Okay. I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah.
The one that came to mind for me, and it wasn't perfect, again, this is why I'm not an expert, and I try not to do this a lot, but I was almost thinking like late career Sean Livingston.
Yeah.
Maybe. Brice isn't going to handle, like, Livingston was the backup point guard for those Warriors teams. I don't think he's a backup point guard in the NBA, which is why I was a little hesitant on that one. Like, Aflalo makes a lot more sense. But my thought on Livingston was lived in the mid-range, stretched it out a little bit, capable ball handler, never going to be the guy, can fill 2 or 3 different roles on a team.
Yeah.
But I like Aflalo better.
Yeah, the Aflalo comp is pretty on the nose. The more you look into it, it's pretty good, and that's another reason why Anthem must follow. So yeah, I got that today, courtesy of him.
We will go to break here in just a sec, but before we do have to point out on the college basketball show the very sad news out of CBS Sports. Greg Gumbel, the voice of the March Madness selection show, passed away today at the age of 78. It sounds like cancer was at least somewhat to blame. Huge loss for CBS Sports. And did I ever meet, Greg Gumbel? I did not. But again, that is a seminal voice of the childhood. That is March is here. When you see the cameras panning, you get the March Madness selection theme music going. Man, we lost a legend.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're in the business of your voice being so widely heard, to be associated with one singular event, or in this case, one single day, I think, because I think when you think of that, the Sunday, you think of the show, goes straight from, the Big Ten tournament, wherever it is, to CBS, the studio in New York. And that's the first voice you hear. And, first up the East region and so on and so forth. But it was not just the selection show for Greg. He had a very illustrious, broadcasting career, going back many, many years. But for guys our age, that's kind of probably the first thing that comes to mind. But that is that's a massive loss. But, that's, if I could even come close to having my voice being affiliated with one singular day on the calendar, there's 365 of them. But if there's one, if one of those could be affiliated with the sound of my voice, that would be a hell of an achievement and a hell of a life. So thinking of his family, and it's a big loss for broadcasting and for college basketball.
It's going to be different. I think Husker fans are looking like they'll have the opportunity to tune in on Selection Sunday, but it'll be down a key voice. We'll go to break. We'll talk about Nebraska's win in Diamond Head and the big picture outlook for the Huskers when we get back.
At Midwest Bank, they want to thank all the generous donors who helped make their 2024 Turkey Drive for Schools a success. Thanks to the generosity, they raised enough money to provide 153 families across 6 different schools in Lincoln with a full Thanksgiving meal. With your support, they made Thanksgiving Day for those families a little brighter. They want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Your community, your bank. Midwest Bank. Member FDIC.
Nebraska is in their first bowl game since 2016, and 93.7 The Ticket is on the scene. Join me, Nick Sainert, Jake Sorensen, and Adam Carricker for coverage from New York City for the Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium. We'll have videos of festivities on Friday with commentary and videos from pregame, during the game, and postgame on Saturday as Nebraska takes on Boston College at 11 a.m. Central Time. Coverage from the Pinstripe Bowl is sponsored by J-Tech Construction and Solar, High Electric, Lincoln Industries, and A1 Automotive.
Attention all wing fans! Buffalo Wings and Rings has daily specials that will make you want to stop in on all days of the week. Kids eat free on Mondays, and on Tuesdays, enjoy 89-cent boneless or traditional wings at a price that makes the whole family happy. And come back on Wednesdays for $1.29 chicken tenders all day long. Get to Wings and Rings today at 68th and O or in Williamsburg Village.
There's only one place this holiday season to shop for the sports fan in your life and get cash back for slightly used sports items you don't need anymore. Play It Again Sports. Check out their selection of new and used items, including home fitness equipment like treadmills, exercise bikes, and ellipticals. And get your lift with free weights, benches, and racks to add to your home gym. And don't forget, if you have anything slightly used to trade in, they'll give you instant cash. Holiday shopping starts and ends at Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
Looking to upgrade your equipment? Landmark Implement, your John Deere dealer in Nebraska and northern Kansas, has an offer you don't want to miss. Through December, purchase a model year 2022, 23, or 24 tractor, combine, or sprayer, and take advantage of financing as low as 3.9 for 60 months. That's right. Get the equipment you need with affordable payments designed to keep your operation running strong. Stop by your local Landmark Implement today or visit landmarkimp.com to learn more. Experience the Landmark difference.
As a proud member of the Roofing and Solar Reform Alliance, Coalition Restoration stands out by providing thorough property assessments, personalized customer service, and top-notch craftsmanship. With years of experience in the industry, Coalition Restoration has built a notable reputation for having a team filled with skilled professionals and possessing the expertise to handle any roofing project, big or small. Visit their website today for a free roof assessment at www.coalitionrestoration.com or give them a call at 402-607-8186.
Back to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Oerman.
Welcome back in, second segment of the show. We're going to get in-depth in the Diamond Head Classic, won by the Nebraska Cornhuskers. First in-season multi-team event won since 2000. The San Juan Shootout, an event I totally knew existed before I heard that stat on Twitter and on the broadcast.
My sicko self knew about it, but that's because I'm the sickest sicko you could imagine.
That is indeed. The voice of Jacob Bigelow, the sickest sicko you have ever met when it comes to college hoops, which is why we appreciate him, which is why we have him on here pretty much every single week. I know you passed the Hawaii test like I passed the Hawaii test. I hope plenty of Husker fans did. Mm-hmm. It was worth it. 3 games that Nebraska wins by double digits, 17, 14, and 12. To me, Jacob, it's an interesting tournament to look back on for Nebraska. I would have had them as the favorites going in as the lone power conference team with Oregon State in the West Coast Conference right now, coming off a tournament appearance last year. Some solid programs in there, not exactly a whole bunch of powerhouses, and maybe a weird tournament for Nebraska to take coming off an NCAA tournament. But it worked out for the Huskers. They avoid the landmines, pick up a quad 2 win in the championship against Oregon State. I don't think any of these games were maybe as big of blowouts as the score indicated. Murray State maybe if Nebraska up by 20 in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii was a dogfight. Oregon State was a beaver fight, whatever, dogfight, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But Nebraska took care of business. Is kind of how I view Diamond Head.
Yeah, that's what I said going in. What do you people would ask me, what do you expect? What do you want them to say? Let's take care of business. I mean, looking at that bracket, the start of the season, I probably would have, wanted to see the Nebraska face Loyola Chicago in the final.
Same.
Loyola is now riddled with injuries, including Omaha Central product Jaden Dawson, who is off to a great start. I think they're down 2 of their 3 starters, and they go out there and they wound up 0-3. So that's
would have been nice to beat Drew like Nebraska beat Denzel that one memorable time.
Yeah, that would have been. I hadn't even thought about they lost their first game to Oakland. I didn't even connect the dots that was the
Campy
teacher-student dynamic. Drew played for Campy, so I didn't think about that. But I mean, Nebraska did what they're supposed to do. They brought a trophy home. They had a couple guys get to bring boat paddles home with them too, for making the all-tournament team. And I don't think that I think they it's not going to be anything. I mean, the wins aren't going to be what pushes them off or off the bubble, either into or out of the tournament. When it gets down to it, a loss might have drawn some of things into question. If they had lost to Murray State or wound up in the losers bracket somehow, I think that would have been the only way that would have been a net negative for them taking that trip in that tournament. But they got to spend Christmas in Hawaii. They got 3 wins. They got to bring a trophy home. They took care of business. They checked all the boxes, and now they got one more tune up and then 18 Big Ten games the rest of the way.
6004. We will get to your question here in just a second about the big picture looking forward for the team. Who else stood out to you, Jacob, in Hawaii for Nebraska? Obviously, Berke Boikdengel gets that other paddle to bring home with him. Pretty good performance from him. Juwan Gary had 20 to help Nebraska. He and Brice Williams basically outscored Hawaii on their own or matched him in that game. Who else stood out to you outside of maybe Brice Williams?
I mean, my biggest standout is Berke, especially in the the championship game against Oregon State. First game in his career where he has multiple made threes in a college game. He'd only made 1, and he goes out there and he makes 3 of them.
Including one ridiculous one that I called ball.
Yeah, including the bank, and then goes from one corner, one possession to the other corner, the next possession. I think Berke, and this may be a hot take to some people, I think the trajectory he's on right now determines the ceiling of this team. I think that he, we've seen the flashes from him, whether it's, rebounding, physicality, him diving into the first row in Sioux Falls and at Omaha. He did it in back-to-back games. He drove into the first row driving for loose balls. And they've been really high on him. You've heard me make the comp to a certain former Cyclone, that I think that Fred Hoiberg's been chasing the ghost of. But I think, Berke's development and his trajectory could really, determine the ceiling for this team in the long run. Because I think he's too talented to just, go out there and get cardio. I think I think he could be, your second or third guy, and be a double digit, scorer by the end of the season. And that could, add a couple more W's to the ledger for the Huskers.
What's the swing skill, the most important thing for him to develop to determine the trajectory positively for Nebraska?
The outside shot. I think the outside shot, then, when Fred, whether it was Big Ten Media Day in Chicago or, when he finally hit the first one, he was just like, he has said again and again and again, he sounded like a broken record. He's like, we know Berke can make him. We know Berke can hit him. Like, we're just waiting on it. And
when he shoots a 3, what's your gut reaction whenever he shoots it?
I wince a little bit, but but that's just my natural, I jokingly say I have like coach brain. Like if you like, no one should ever want to like watch a game on TV or in person with me. Like I'm best to be like left at a distance, because I've got
like an animal in a cage at the zoo.
Because I've got coach brain. I'm like putting a hand up, like I'm like trying to close out, like I'm doing like it's all
extra.
No, I'm not quite like yelling stance, like I'm not quite there, but it's pretty close. But I mean, I think the outside shot and just the, and I think the play inside too, which has been honestly, I don't want to say the most surprising, but that's where I think he's flashed the most is around the rim and around the basket. But if they can, add, I'm not saying he needs to make 3 threes a game, but if they can, if you're wincing less when he's, taking shots from outside, that's a positive sign for him.
I think I'm with you on the outside shot. I mean, I think the energy is going to be a big thing, right? That is an enthusiastic basketball player.
Yes.
That is a man, the
Yes.
joie de vivre for the sport of basketball, which you would like to be infectious for the team. Plays with some attitude to him, got some spunk. Baseline Bear K is about to be trademarked if it's not already.
Yep.
But he's not a sniper from outside. He's a bit of a shotgun, right? Little wild. So every time he takes one, I'm like, okay, I know they think he can make it. He's open, so you want him to shoot it. I don't always feel great about it. A couple other players I want your opinion on. We've had some questions and gone back and forth on other shows about this, but Raleigh Wooster, we had someone say that he thinks Nebraska, needs Aaron Eulis back to split time with Raleigh Wooster at the point guard position. I pushed back on that. I thought Raleigh Wooster was solid enough in Hawaii. And if you're hearing Raleigh Wooster's name a lot, it's either someone that really knows the game of basketball or things have gone off the rails and he's taking far too many shots for this team. The box score matters, but you know what Raleigh Wooster is. He's 8, 6, and 4. Every day, consistently,
Absolutely.
he handles the ball. So I'm not so concerned about the box score with Raleigh Wooster.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the turnovers have been a little eye-opening, and there have been some games where they've been higher than his career numbers would tell you, and what you would expect from him. But I don't think Nebraska brought him in to light the world on fire, scoring the basketball, and I think that's they've. He's a point. He's as much of a point guard as a point guard can be, and that he's built like a linebacker, but he plays point guard, and he's gonna
quarterback, by the way, in case you didn't know.
Former quarterback. Shout out to
Missoula, Montana.
Not just Missoula, Montana. Possibly my favorite name of a high school I've ever heard. He went to Hellgate High School in Missoula, Montana. So shout out to Hellgate High in Missoula. But he's gonna set the table. He's gonna initiate the offense, and I don't think he's ever gonna do too much. And I do, I think Eulis, I the flashes I've seen from him. I mean, he's your fast break point guard. Like he's definitely the better option to get out and go and in transition. But I don't think that takes anything away from Raleigh. I think they're they've been a good yin and yang, when change pace from one another when one's in, the other's not. Raleigh, I think he's kind of been exactly what I thought he would be. He's there to set the table, and if you want him to make the smart play, the smart read, the smart pass, I don't think the ball is going to be in his hand. I don't think he's going to be putting the shot up in crunch time. The ball will be in his hand to get the offense going in crunch time, but I don't think he's going to be the go-to.
No, I don't think so either. Hit a big shot against St. Mary's to spark Nebraska at the end of the first half. Hit the late layup against Creighton after a steal in transition, and those are probably a couple of the biggest moments he'll have as a Husker, and that's fine. He's doing his job. He's a glue guy to me. He ties everything together, makes everything work. The flip side of that, you're taking Bear K for your X factor for the season, minus Connor Essegian, right? I know what Bear K can do as a matchup nightmare, but Connor Essegian to me has been a really nice add for the non-con. He's shown up against St. Mary's, hit the 3 that got Nebraska going. Against Creighton, had pretty much everything working that night. But he's familiar with Big Ten teams, and they're familiar with him. To me, whatever Connor Essegian's doing in the non-conference, great, cool, whatever. Nebraska's going to need him much more in conference play, where teams and coaches and personnel are familiar with him. So to me, we will be able to grade the Connor Essegian edition in the offseason by what he does, not in the next game against Southern, but in the 18 games after that.
Oh, absolutely. And, they're going to, and I'll finish a thought on Raleigh. I mean, there are going to be some nights in the Big Ten where he can, kind of try to bully some little guards in the Big Ten. There are going to be some nights where having a point guard built like him is going to definitely be a plus. For Essegian, I'm with you. I mean, the familiarity in the Big Ten, whether it's the venues, the schemes, the personnel, That's why you bring in a guy like him, just on the surface, and then you hope, obviously going from playing for Greg Gard to playing for Fred Hoiberg, that you'd see the bounce back, from him, and we've seen flashes of it from time to time. After that Indiana game, where I think he finished with like 13, right? I think he came in, he had 13 off the bench. That's kind of like I was like, that's what you want him to be. Like, you want him to be like your sixth man, your spark plug, like, come in, hit a couple threes.
13 on 4-7 overall, 2 of 4 from 3.
Yeah, I think that's almost the
2 of 3,
perfect. I think that's almost perfect, like, for him. Like, that's the ideal output, the ideal role for him. Similar to, he's got the same number. They run some of the same plays for him. It's similar to the CJ Wilcher mold when he was really on his hot streak, last year around this time, actually, when people were campaigning for him to be Big Ten Sixth Man of the Year. I think that's kind of the ideal role for Connor Essegian. But I think the familiarity with everything that goes into Big Ten basketball, that's just that's an added plus for him, because he's gonna have a role. It's just gonna be a matter of how much he can be a star in it.
Last thing on the rotation before we get to the question from the text line here. Do you think Nebraska found its 8-man rotation in Hawaii?
I think so, yes. I think they did.
The Aaron Eulis return, does it complicate anything? Because that'd be number 9. To me, how it works out is you're seeing, I just had it pulled up. Where are we at? Connor Essegian page. So I need all the stats.
It's Essegian, Morgan.
And I think that whatever Sam Hoiberg and Aaron Eulis are doing minutes-wise, so right now, Aaron Eulis is getting 15 minutes per game, and Sam Hoiberg is getting 18 minutes per game. I think Nebraska found it's going to play 9 guys, but I think that they can morph it into 8 by splitting up Aaron Eulis and Sam Hoiberg into one player.
Yeah.
Right? It's 2 guys, but you can use them as one guy backing up Raleigh if Brice gets in foul trouble, with Sejan's off, you need more defense, whatever.
Yes.
I don't think there's a full 15 minutes for both of those guys every night, especially if they're not going to shoot it. Love Sam Hoiberg, part of our ticket family here. He just made his 3rd 3 of the season.
Yeah.
3rd. Sammy, boy, he'd tell you, I'm sure, I'm going to tell you, he's got to make more than that to be a weapon. That's what made him so good at the end of 2 seasons ago. And he was shooting 40% from 3 instead of 33% from 3. He and Eulis are similar but different. Raleigh Wooster's going to play the bulk of the minutes. He's in shape. He's the guy Nebraska wants on the floor. The big man rotation is going to be interesting. I don't think we see a lot of Bear K at the 5 in the Big Ten.
No.
Certain matchups maybe, but I think your rotation at the 4 is Jawan and Bear K for the most part. And then your big men, obviously, Mia and Morgan backing him up. And then it's Brice Williams at the 2 and Connor Essegian. I think that's really the lineup, the 8.5 guys you're going with.
And if a big man gets into foul trouble, back up 5, Cale Jacobson. If
people forget, including me.
People forget and back up 5-man, Cale Jacobson if somebody gets into foul trouble. But I would tend to agree with you with that assessment. I think it's matchup dependent, personnel dependent, situation dependent. But I think that was a big thing that we talked about before the year, and we've seen evidence of so far. It's just they've got options. They've got guys. I think there's clearly one guy who has fallen out of consideration for the rotation. We don't have to mention him.
No, but I want to.
Yeah, but
I want to because I think it's a worthwhile conversation.
Yeah.
Gavin Griffiths looks like me out there right now.
Yeah.
Right. He looks like he's playing basketball the way I played basketball.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't the worst. I wasn't the best. But that's a guy that looks hesitant. That looks like he wasn't sure of the role, isn't sure of the fit. Nowadays, in this transfer portal era, I can see him being a guy that jumps into the portal, says, nope, wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm going back to the Northeast or whatever. But I want Nebraska to keep him because I still think there's a game where he goes off.
Yeah.
Late in the season that he saves Nebraska. He hits 4 or 5 threes, makes a game-saving block, Amir Harris style, Thor Bjarnason style, whatever it is, right? I still think we have a Gavin Griffiths game this year. But I also think that he's a guy you can almost lump into next year's recruiting class, right? It's essentially a redshirt year where he can be a piece, not to take over Brice Williams' role or Juwan Gary's role necessarily, but I think there's a Big Ten player in there. Once he gets confident and learns his role, I think he's a useful piece next year.
Yeah. I'm here's what I've been telling people, they asked me about Griffiths and his role. He's a true sophomore. Him and Berke are both true sophomores on a team full of old heads. Like these are all old, like dudes who have 401ks. They've got, portfolios. Like they're old dudes. They've played a lot of college basketball. And that's going to be, it's going to be an extensive senior day, at PBA when we get to it, because this is an old team. And, I think the development, is a big thing for him. Like, and whether it's, just in practice or just his shot. And I think being around Fred Hoiberg is going to be good for his development regardless when it comes to shooting and all that, and developing a confidence, because I agree with you, he has looked hesitant, and I think that just for the time being, just the way that the cards have been dealt, there's just not a role for him right now. But I think there could be, and if that goes into the coaching cliches, the next man up, always be ready, like what they told the JV guys who got to suit up varsity, like next man up, always be ready. But it's kind of is in a similar vein to that with him. But I mean, right now I don't think he's in the rotation unless there's foul trouble or an injury of some sort, God forbid.
Again, that was me. I was the JV guy as a sophomore, suiting up varsity. Be ready, next man up. And then I broke my finger the next year and missed baseball my junior year. So here's hoping that doesn't happen to Gavin Griffiths. 6004. I promise you have a great question. We want to get to it. We'll take a break, wrap up with some big picture outlook for Nebraska men's basketball after this. Salt Mine City is now open at 8th and R in the Haymarket. Come check out Lincoln's newest brewery with 12 beers on tap, including the popular Single Axle Light American Lager, Brick Street Amber Wheat, and so many more. There's daily drink specials like $1 off Moscow Mules on Tuesdays, $6 IPAs on Fridays, and $6 Bloody Marys on Saturdays. Stop by Tuesday through Thursday from 4 to 9 p.m., Fridays 4 to 11 p.m., Saturdays 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Sundays from noon to 8 p.m. It's Salt Mine City, Lincoln's newest brewery at 8th and R.
Everyone should have a collection of something. For some, it's stamps or coins, expensive cars, or even watches. But for a lot of people, it's sports cards. And there's no better way to grow your collection than with the help of Capital City Sports Cards, Lincoln's first and only collector-first sports cards and memorabilia shop. Capital City Sports Cards connects collectors of all ages and demographics with unique collectibles sure to bring any collection to life, no matter the budget. Visit Capital City Sports Cards near 56th and Old Cheney or through their eBay storefront. Capital City Sports Cards, Lincoln's premier sports card and memorabilia store.
Hey there, fellas. It's your girl Jordan with Sartor Heyman Jewelry. Allow me to get a bit sappy. For women, jewelry isn't just a gift. It's a timeless symbol of love and appreciation. You have to get this right. No fleeting trends or gadgets will make the impact. Every time she wears it, every time she gets a compliment, you win. Trust me, guys. You'll get your money worth. Until next time, this is Jordan at Sartor Heyman Jewelry. Happy shopping, guys.
At Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical, we're ready, reliable, and recommended. Water heater acting up or your sump pump on the fritz? Call Action. Summer's around the corner. Is your AC working? Are you sure? Call Action. Electrical problems? I'm telling you, call Action. Call Action for a free same-day estimate or a trusted second opinion. You heard that right, a free same-day estimate. 402-423-6960. ActionLincoln.com.
Load up on meat and more this winter at the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese. This week's special through December 31st is 30% off on Smithy pans. The Mercado is closed on Christmas Day and New Year's Day and wishes you and yours a very happy holidays. Locations at 84th and Havelock, 30th and Yankee Hill, and now 85th and Old Cheney and Lincoln, or 168th and Maple in Omaha. Get to the Mercado today for the best meat in town.
Looking to upgrade your equipment? Landmark Implement, your John Deere dealer in Nebraska and northern Kansas, has an offer you don't want to miss. Through December, purchase a model year 2022, 23, or 24 tractor, combine, or sprayer, and take advantage of financing as low as 3.9 for 60 months. That's right. Get the equipment you need with affordable payments designed to keep your operation running strong. Stop by your local Landmark Implement today or visit landmarkimp.com to learn more. Experience the Landmark difference.
As a proud member of the Roofing and Solar Reform Alliance, Coalition Restoration stands out by providing thorough property assessments, personalized customer service, and top-notch craftsmanship. With years of experience in the industry, Coalition Restoration has built a notable reputation for having a team filled with skilled professionals and possessing the expertise to handle any roofing project, big or small. Visit their website today for a free roof assessment at www.coalitionrestoration.com or give them a call at 402-607-8186.
Husker Nation, Nebraska is heading to the Pinstripe Bowl, and J-Tech Construction and Solar is here to help you score big on your home this season. Buy any 2 trades, windows, siding, roofing, solar, gutters, or doors, and save up to 20% off. Plus, enjoy no payments until 2026 and receive a $25 Valentino's gift card. Don't wait for the final whistle. Score big with J-Tech. From a new roof to energy-saving windows and solar panels, they've got your home covered like a true champ. Call 402-261-3682 to schedule your free estimate today. J-Tech Construction and Solar, proud sponsors of Husker football.
Back to the Corner 3 on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Austin Oerman.
One final segment for the week, and then it is all Husker football for basically the next 24 hours. Austin Oerman joined by Jacob Bigelow here on the Corner 3. Jacob, as always, appreciate you coming in, as always.
Yeah.
Question from the text line. We had this at the start of the show, and I promised we meant to get to it sooner, but talking ball happened. So 6004 on our Starter Human Jewelers text line says, what record would Nebraska need to end the season with to get above the typical 8 or 9 seed if Nebraska was looking at a 6 or 7 seed? I will caveat before your answer. Every year is different. There's not necessarily a target number because you could see, say, a 19-win SEC or Big 12 team end up with a 5 or 6 seed, whereas you might need 22 or 23 wins in the ACC or Big East right now to get to that same line. It's not, they don't just look at number of wins, they look at the quality of wins. If we take that into account for Nebraska, the Huskers sit at 10-2 right now, 1-1 in the Big Ten, 1 non-conference game against Southern to go before 18 games in conference play. So, Jacob, with Nebraska's schedule so far and upcoming schedule, if Nebraska wants to be a 6 or 7 seed instead of an 8 or 9 like last year, what's the target record in your mind?
I think you got to be north of 20 to get up to the 6. If you're talking 6 for sure, because I think the Big Ten right now, I mean, I don't know where the top of the league ends up seed wise. I don't think there's a 1 seed in the Big Ten.
I don't think there's a 2.
Don't think there's a 2 seed either. So I think
3 may be a stretch.
3 might be a stretch. Yeah, that's a good thought. So I mean, I think if the top of your conference is probably going to be on the 3 line, 4 line. That's a tough thing to think because I think if Nebraska, they got 19 games to go. They already got 10 wins. And I think the program's only had 10 wins before Christmas 5 times, if I remember correctly.
Not many.
Not many. It's very rare. And I think if they, people are going to hear me say 9-9 and roll their eyes, but
9-9.
I think 9-9 you're in. You might be in. I think you get to 19. If they protect home court and they get to 19 wins, they're in the NCAA tournament. To answer the texter's question, I think they'd have to think about being above an 8-9. It might be like 22, to be honest. And I think that's just because of how, for lack of a better word, mid the Big Ten is. Like, I just don't think I think the Big Ten, there were projections that came out today, and yes, they're projections, and yes, it's December, but I think there's a world where Nebraska is back in an 8-9 game and maybe even a 10 seed.
So by the way you're answering, I assume I know the answer to this question, but just for clarification. Is this a better or worse Big Ten than 2017-18?
It's better.
How much better? Slightly, significantly. That year in the Big Ten, Michigan State won the league with a 16-2 record. You had Purdue and Ohio State tied for second at 15-3. Nebraska and Michigan tied for fourth at 13-5. Then a gap of 4 games between Penn State and Indiana down at 6th at 9-9.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you define better. Because 4 teams made the tournament?
Yeah, Michigan State, Purdue, Ohio State, Michigan,
and one of them was the national runner-up. But I think, so I guess I mean, top to bottom, I think the league is better. But I mean, when it's the Big Ten and you're talking NCAA tournament, it's how many second weekend teams are going to be, the national title game, drought, blah, 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 blah. But I think it's deeper. I don't know about better. I'll rephrase my answer. I don't know about better. I think it's deeper, but I just don't
more mid again, more in the middle, less on the
mid.
top.
Yeah, it's mid. I mean, I think there's a clear cut bottom 3, maybe bottom 4 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's not like a Death Star team that everyone's afraid of. There's not a team that I think is going to win the league by multiple games. I mean, I think it's going to be a dogfight. And yes, some teams that I was not high on before the year are going to be toward the top of the league, like Maryland, and with Wisconsin's there right now. I don't know how long they'll be there. They're there right now, but I mean, it's a crapshoot, and I think that leads more into protecting home court. Nebraska hasn't lost a Big Ten game, and at Pinnacle Bank Arena since February 28th of 2023, their last home game of the 22-23 season. That was their last home loss. So I mean, protecting home court is huge in the Big Ten, and if you can protect home court and steal 1 or 2 on the road, then you're sitting pretty, when it comes down to tournament time.
Not everyone is putting out bracket projections right now. I saw 2 today. One of them had Nebraska in an 8-9 matchup as the 8 seed against Dayton. The other one had Nebraska in a 7-10 as the 10 seed facing off against Oklahoma. So that's kind of where some people think Nebraska is right now. You got to look at what the key wins on the schedule are, right? That's why we mentioned that UCLA game. That's a home opportunity against a fringe top 25 team right now that I still think has the potential to win the league in UCLA. You find a way to win that one against a stellar defensive team. That's a feather in the cap, but it's at home, right? You don't get knocked for winning a game at home. You get bonus points on the road. At Iowa, that's another bubble team. At Purdue, probably an NCAA tournament team, but Mackey has not been kind to you, so you can't count on winning that one. Rutgers, no offense, Brice Williams, we spent a whole segment talking him up, will have the best player and maybe the 2 best players on the floor in that game in Lincoln. Maryland, we'll see. USC's not doing much for you. At Wisconsin, back and forth series, we'll see. Illinois coming to Lincoln. Again, not a great matchup for Nebraska, but they had them on the ropes at halftime of the Big Ten tournament last year. So we'll see about that one. Road opportunities in the last half of the schedule at Oregon. I'm not sold on the Ducks. They play with fire too much for me to be confident in them as a top 10 team, but they're long, they're athletic, they're talented. Dana's going to want to beat Nebraska. At Washington, Nebraska should be favored in that one. At Northwestern, I'm not a believer. Sneaky big game on the road at Penn State. If they keep this up, that might be the game that tells me if Nebraska is an NCAA tournament team or not, if they can go to the Bryce Jordan Center and get a win.
Yeah, I that's Penn State. That's a team that's outperformed my expectations. I think and I'm just looking nearsighted, not too down the line yet. This UCLA game a week from tomorrow feels huge. It feels like it's a way it's like Jay-Z said, allow me to reintroduce myself, for Nebraska to say, we're still here. Hey, I know we went out to Hawaii. We did that thing out there, but we're still here. And then I'm not one to call shots by any means. There's one arena in the Big Ten where Nebraska has not won a basketball game, and it's Mackey Arena.
Yeah.
And
not only is Nebraska not won, Nebraska has rarely looked competent in that arena.
And you could argue that they should have beaten Purdue the last 2 seasons. And I think the way Nebraska is built compared to the way Purdue's built, the teams that have given Purdue the most fits are the teams that are tough as hell off the ball, that are physical with you. Raleigh Worcester, having to go guard and Braden Smith. That'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm not going to say Nebraska's going to go to West Lafayette and win that game. I'll be in West Lafayette for that game. But I don't know if I'm not going to, call my shot. But I think that is kind of the game that I'm looking at as the first, big, I guess, pelt on the wall game that they could, have a chance to, have something, at least Big Ten wise, that's a pelt on the wall. And it wouldn't be a pelt; it would just be one of Purdue Pete's many weird heads.
Ooh, yeah. What did you take back, like a railroad spike or something?
Yeah, I don't know. Or is it Purdue Pete's helmet? Do you take the plastic helmet?
I would try.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would at least try.
Yeah, I don't know. Something like that. Or one of Gene Katie's beers. He's got a bunch of like local, it's like you just, yeah. If I was a basketball
beer shower, shake it up in the locker room.
If I was a basketball coach, like I know Northern Illinois football has like
the boneyard,
the wall of bones.
Yeah.
Like mine would be like a fridge, like Road Winds. Like it would be like, what's the local beer of choice from wherever we just got this Road Wind, and it's just sitting in there. That would be my mementos if I was a coach.
I love it. One last thing here from Tommy on the text line. 24 wins should be a realistic goal, but that might only get you a 7 seed. Your eyes bugged out of your head. Explain.
24 wins is a 7 seed. I mean, it computes. It doesn't compute well with my pea brain. But then again, I was a student manager for a team that won 22 and was a 5 seed in the NIT. So stranger things have happened. I think the Big Ten is in a weird spot nationally. Obviously, the discourse right now is so much SEC centric. I have a lot more faith in the discourse surrounding SEC basketball than any of the discourse surrounding SEC football. I think the Big Ten's in a weird spot. I'm interested to see if any team rises above. I mean, like I said, I don't think there's going to be any team that wins the league by multiple games. And I don't know if I think they're top the favorites right now, depending on who you ask. It's probably Illinois, UCLA, Oregon, and there's kind of been a groundswell of people like, can Maryland win the Big Ten? I've heard some people. I've heard it, Austin.
I have too.
Can Maryland win the Big Ten?
I believe more in Michigan than Maryland.
I do too. I think
that's not saying I believe it.
I think I have a little bit of bias, because people, not me, people are saying that Michigan's head coach is bizarro world me. Like if my path had gone the way that I wanted it to, it would have wound up like Dusty May. I am a sucker for some Dusty May talk, but I would kind of tend to agree with you too. I think when Michigan comes here, if you have someone in your life who talks about how much they miss the 90s in the NBA, bring them to Pinnacle Bank Arena the night that Nebraska plays Michigan, and Berke, Braxton Mia, Danny Wolf, and Vlad Golden are just borderline assaulting each other in the paint for 40 minutes. If you have someone in your life who's like, I miss the NBA in the 90s, give me the bad boy Pistons, you're going to have a little preview of just dudes flying into each other when Michigan comes to Lincoln.
It will be the college basketball equivalent of a rain game in the NFL because both of these teams will hit each other and they will do the most ridiculous turnovers back and forth of any two teams in college basketball.
Yes.
Let me throw this to you real quick. 24 wins. How many times has it been accomplished in Nebraska men's basketball history?
I think just twice.
Incorrect. Once.
Oh.
Danny Nee's 1990-1991 Nebraska team that got the 3 seed in the NCAA tournament lost to Xavier.
Yes.
Got to 26.
Yep.
Fred Hoiberg last year got to 23.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Miles that year, you mentioned, got to 22. Mo Iba, Joseph Browno, and someone named Paul Schisler also got to 22 wins at Nebraska. Paul Schisler is back in 1919 and 20.
Yes.
So essentially the path to Nebraska getting 24 wins is at 10 right now. You got to win 12 of your remaining 19 probably.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably 11 more wins in Big Ten conference play. That means you win at least one in, where are we at this year? Is it Chicago?
Indy
in the Big Ten tournament.
Yep.
And then 24 might be you get off the schneid in the NCAA tournament, or you got to find another win in Big Ten play in the regular season or in the conference season. Call me a hater if you want. I don't necessarily see Nebraska going 14-5 in the regular season. I think 12-7 is on the table.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yes.
But Nebraska's doing some really good things. We probably want to win a game in Indy to feel comfortable about seeding.
I would almost argue 12-7 is the ceiling.
Okay.
I would say that's my ceiling. And that's no slight to Nebraska. Looking at their schedule, I'm just thinking about road games because I don't see a world where I'm going to regret saying this.
You got to win 2.
I don't see a world where any team comes into Lincoln and runs them off the court and it's like a big, black mark, scarlet letter on your resume.
Right.
So your road games in the league the rest of the way. Carver Hawkeye, Mackey, Maryland, Wisconsin, Oregon, Washington, Northwestern, Penn State, and Ohio State. And the games on that list that like daunt or like I don't want to say scare you, but like jump out from the rest.
That scared Nebraska fans. Cower from.
Are probably Iowa, just because of how it's gone recently. Purdue, because Purdue is what it is.
You never won there.
You've never won there. The mystery of going out to Oregon. Where will they be? What will they be? The Dana storyline, all of that, and that's it. The rest of those road games, like, and that's my Big Ten brain, my whatever. You've got the two sleepiest buildings in the league,
back to back, same week,
back to back. Ohio State and Penn State.
Northwestern and Penn State.
It's not that Northwestern's third, but the top two sleepiest buildings in the league are Ohio State and Penn State.
Okay.
Ohio State alums will tell you that they have the worst arena in the conference.
They
will openly tell you. Mark Titus came on my podcast and said we have the worst home arena in the league, and it's
downsized.
And it's not close. And I said worse than Penn State. He said I wouldn't fight it, and I'm just like okay. So I mean those like, and then I guess I mean that Maryland game intrigues me. I guess, and Maryland's a double play too. And your double plays are Maryland and Ohio State, and Maryland, Ohio State, and
Iowa. Yeah.
So I mean, it's like
manageable, but you can't count wins.
Yeah, you can't count wins. You can't count chickens. But I mean, I don't think there's anything that's like daunting or scary. I think it's beneficial for them that they only see Illinois once.
Yeah,
I think that's my biggest. That's my biggest thing. Looking at that schedule, you only see Illinois once.
UCLA once potentially.
Yep. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Any final Husker football Pinstripe Bowl predictions from you before we get out of here?
I think it's going to be a tight game. I want to say it's. I don't want to say it's a coin flip. I forget. I'm not going to try to pronounce the guy's name who got announced today that he's opting out. That's huge. But I think it's a tight game, and I think BC covers, but Nebraska wins.
Ooh, that's a tight spread too.
Yep.
Nebraska by 4. You heard it here first, folks. Yep. Jacob Bigelow, BC covers, Nebraska wins. We will be back with you in 12 hours and 52 minutes. But who's counting? 8 a.m. pregame coverage, A1 Automotive Ticket Tailgate pregame show for Nebraska and Boston College in the Pinstripe Bowl. Give our guys Nick and Jake a follow. Follow Jacob on Twitter at Jacob A. Bigelow. I'm there at Austin_Oerman. We'll talk to you again soon.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth.